Welcome to the Fight with Depression podcast, the podcast for people who want to improve their mental health. My name is Christopher Boussard, and you are listening to part 2 of my discussion with Jordan Long, founder of Revital Colorado. If you did not listen to part 1, please go back and listen to that, because we are going to continue our conversation where we left off. So thank you for listening. No, you were talking about the hosts and having that passion and everything. But what do you do if one of your hosts, like you were talking about, they somebody comes to them and they kind of overwhelm them. They spill their guts, and it's something that they can't handle. What do you guys encourage them to do at that point?
Yeah, so prior to that, our hope is that most of our hosts, and we're trying to implement this to ensure it this year, but they've gone through a peer support training. Mm-hmm. So they at least have the foresight of that component, right? Because that in and of itself can help in those types of situations. The second piece is we always ensure them, you can call me, you can, send them to us immediately if it's something that's, life or death situation type of thing. Knock on wood, we haven't really had much of that. We have had outings where the conversation gets heavy, but by and large, the host will call me and be like, you would not believe the way everybody just rallied around this individual that was sharing. And It was completely unexpected. And because we're all in this world, everybody just kind of takes care of each other. And so it doesn't always just fall on the host. If it does, we have tools that they know what to do.
Well, and it's funny because, I don't know, funny, sad. So our big fear about spilling our guts, sharing too much, is that we're going to be judged, right? Somebody's going to be sitting here, thinking all of these awful things about me. But there's a lot more compassion. Like you were talking about, these people rally around them. Like it's not a judgmental, like, oh man, that, it's a compassion thing, because there's always somebody else going through something similar, and it's not, our fears are in our brain, right? These things that, I don't know what to expect. I'm that person. I hate going into new situations because I'm like, I don't know what to expect here. And so you go to this outing and it's like, oh, I don't want to open up because I don't know how I'm going to be received.
Totally.
That's all in our own head. And so I think with these outings, and the more people kind of hear about organizations like Revital, you guys are growing. I think I just bopped everybody, but you guys are growing and everything, and a lot of people are talking about what they told others on this, like, oh man, I went on this retreat, or I went on this thing, and I told all about these problems, and everybody's like, I didn't know you had that problem.
Yeah.
But they're more likely to open up because they see that the warm reception, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
That they're getting from that.
Well, there's so much power in sharing your story. And I'll always say this, right? And these are two things that my dad has shared. These are two things that I've heard from different podcasts, right? Turn your mess into a message, right? Your greatest hurt becomes your greatest mission. And honestly, that's what you're doing. That's what I'm trying to do. And sharing your story, there's always those people that it's going to relate to. And that vulnerability and that transparency piece, if anybody's judging you, that's just sheer arrogance, because we live on a broken planet and we're all broken people.
Right.
We all have our own stuff that we're dealing with. And those that act like they don't, they're not in tune and in touch with it enough to understand how to share it. But those that do share it, it's healing for them, and it's healing for others. And it brings you closer, right? That's what we were built for. And to your point of it growing, I think it is. And hopefully our goal is to reduce this stigma in life in general, but in this responder community, of you can't have problems, you can't show weakness, you're macho, you're hero. That's garbage, right? And I love this conversation with the older generation, because whenever older chiefs or older captains or people that are 10 years superior to me say, you're crazy, this stuff doesn't exist, you know what I say? it's your generation statistics that we're working off of, not mine.
Yeah.
Right? It's your generation statistics that are being studied, not mine.
Yeah.
And all we're trying to do is help the younger generation not have to go through the same things we went through.
Well, and you're going to have naysayers, right? Everybody's going to have like, well, we don't need that. We didn't need that when I was a kid or when we started in the fire service. We hear that a lot, and I tell people, because when we started our peer support program with my fire department, I started that in 2017, and I got kind of heard that like, we don't need peer support, and I said, well, when I started, we didn't have cell phones. Mm-hmm. We didn't have smartphones. Mm-hmm. When our peer support was talking after the call, on the way back, or whatever, we talked and we opened up. But now what happens is everybody gets on their phone, everybody shuts down. Mm-hmm. But because you're saying that you don't need peer support, because you don't need organizations like this, you don't need something, but you kind of look at some of those people and say, maybe you could have used that.
Yeah.
You
totally.
know? So I don't know. In my opinion, those naysayers, the people who are sitting there like, oh, you don't need that. Those are the people that either they're the ones opening up. Mm-hmm. And if not, then they have their opinion, and we're just going to leave it. Okay. And you're entitled to your opinion,
And there's got to be a healthy balance. There's got to be a healthy balance of, we need some of that older generation toughness too, because you cannot get through this career being so sensitive that everything offends you, everything, you need a day off because of this and that. That can't happen. We can't go too far on that spectrum. We've got to still maintain. There is resilience. There is a balance in mental toughness, but you've got to know your limits. You've got to know your boundaries, and you've got to know your resources early and often, and utilize them.
And it's not waiting until you're overflowing,
right,
before you
preventative and proactive.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if I get accused of being too sensitive or being whatever, but I don't know that that's a true perspective of who I am.
Sure.
Like, if I've been accused of making my mental health my my identity, right? Mm-hmm. Like, oh, that's you're trying to make this, everything about you is, oh, woe is me kind of thing, or whatever. But I think I would encourage somebody to sit down and, we can kind of talk about how tough we are.
Oh yeah.
Some of the stuff that we've gone through, but it's being able to open up requires strength.
100%. Oh, you're absolutely right. I've never seen that from you. I think it's the opposite. And it's the same thing, is being vulnerable, being transparent takes courage, takes strength. And honestly, it takes a part of you saying, I don't really care what other people think, to be honest, because I know in my heart what the reason is I'm doing this for, and how many people this can help.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Molly's over here losing her brain. She's got something she wants to say, and I think should we welcome Molly onto this? Because
I always welcome Molly.
Okay. So we're gonna have Molly come in here, and she's got something to say.
So when you guys were talking about, Jordan, what was it that you said when people open up, and there was a quote or something like, you turn your mess into a message, or your greatest hurt becomes your greatest mission. Yeah. And I think that is so absolutely true. Last year I was doing something with Revital, and I was reaching out to people that I had never met before, different spouses of firefighters. And it was amazing how many spouses came out of the woodwork And they were like, what is Revital? What is this? Because Revital, let's be honest, it started closer to the metro area. Totally. And it's coming north, because we're in northern Colorado. It's coming north. And there's a lot of people who haven't heard about it. And I'm going, yes, I want to do something to support local first responders. And they're like, I'm in. What do you need? Because we need it. Whatever it is, we need it. And I heard the same thread throughout all these spouses coming through about their husbands, not complaining, but it was pleas for help. Like he needs something. He needs something else. And so many of them have gotten in touch and been able to do outings. And it's just, I don't know. I think it's pretty remarkable because, as you were saying, as a spouse, sometimes, I mean, I have to be the one a lot to tell Christopher, we're doing this. And he doesn't necessarily want to sometimes, but then he does, and he ends up enjoying it. And I think a lot of the times that does fall onto the spouse, kind of get the, hey, let's get you out. Let's get you doing these things. And I don't know. I couldn't believe it, the outpouring and the response. And it's such a needed program. So it's awesome. Thank you.
Well, I want to say something real fast. First of all, I want to just express on this podcast my sincere gratitude for what you guys did for us last year. It was absolutely incredible to have you guys take your personal time, your business time to run a fundraiser for us was huge. I don't think most people understand how time consuming, and now you do, how time consuming that stuff can be, but how meaningful it was. I mean, the $10,000 to $12,000 that you guys raised for our organization was huge, and that goes a long ways. And so thankful for that. And you hit it on the head. And I listened to you and Emily's podcast, part 2 last night, and talked about just when you share, it helps others feel like, oh, it's not only me. Right. I'm not alone. Right. Yeah. And same thing for spouses, because they think they're the only ones going through it. Right. And it's just that community aspect, community driven response to let them know they're not alone. Sometimes that's enough. That's all the validation they need to say, oh, all right, I can get through this. Right. Yeah. And to the second point you made about Chris not wanting to do things, I went through a long period of this, still go through it at times. You work 48 hours shifts, or if you're a law enforcement officer, 10-hour shifts, 8 hours, whatever it might be, making decisions for that entire period of time. And you come home and you're like, I don't want to make a decision right now. Yeah. And I don't want to go anywhere. Yeah. I'm tired of people. Yes. But to your point, we have to do it, and we owe it to our families to do that as well. Right.
Well, and I was going to say, like, as the, anybody listening who is a spouse or a friend or family member, whatever, of a first responder, that maybe they recognize something that's like they're struggling right now. Mm-hmm. Like, I would encourage them to just say, hey, open up and say, hey, you're not okay right now. You're not in a good place. You need to go out and do something for yourself, mm-hmm. because that's needed. And we like to hide in our little bubbles and everything. Like you said, I get home, I don't want to make any decisions. I don't want to go out. I don't want to see people. I want to hide in my bubble, but that's not always a good thing to do. Mm-mm. So,
no, it can actually be detrimental, for sure.
Yeah. So cool. I don't know. I think I've used up all my questions that I had for you. Do you have any questions or anything else that you want to kind of...
I do have a question for you before I get to that. I would like to share with anybody that's on here that is a responder. And as you said, Molly, our stuff is spreading north and south. And one of the reasons why, obviously it started in the metro area because it started with my old apartment and was kind of taken from there. The best way that we've been able to get this message out to departments like yours is by coming in and doing a shift training and a shift rollout, so to speak. Because if it comes from an email from a chief or a peer support lead, I'll just be honest, people don't read it most of the time. It's just another email. And if they do read it, there's a heavy level of skepticism. Whereas if we can come in and share and they can actually see the realness and the transparency, that is what we want. So if you're on here and you're listening and your department hasn't had the chance to bring us out, please do, because we just want to share this message, and it's a free resource. We want nothing from people. We just want them to know you have a place to connect with other responders through our organization.
Yeah, we definitely had that surge after you came out and talked to our organization. And even while we're sitting there, everybody's like, "Oh, I want the," everybody's downloading the app. And after that, our department, everybody just started like going out on these outings. Yeah. Even though we had brought, as the peer support coordinator, I had told people about this, and we had done that. We had let people know about your organization. But it wasn't until you came out and talked to people and actually showed what you guys do that everybody's like, "Oh man, that's great. I'm gonna sign me up."
Yeah, no, it's awesome. So my question for you, and I know that we could probably have an entirely different podcast about this answer and question. So we have a significant amount of, I shouldn't say significant. We have a fair amount of retirees, whether early retirement, whether medical retirement, or whether they made it their 25, 30 years, that I've dealt with over the past couple of years, or that we've dealt with. For you, I've watched kind of two types of retirees. There's the type that retires and has their plans, has their community, has their finances in order, and they're loving life. And then there's the other side of the coin where they retire maybe early, maybe without the plans in the community, and they feel as if the band is gone. They don't know what to do with their life, and they're lonely and they're lost, and sometimes, sadly enough, that leads to suicide. But for you, I've watched you take what's happened to you and turn it into a positive and build your own businesses. And that's challenging, right? As you know, what is the motivating factor, and how do you, because I know starting your own business is tough, how would you encourage somebody else that's maybe in your same shoes to just get started? Because I think what I hear from a lot of them is, I don't have any other skills. I don't know what to do. This is all I've known, right? Yeah. So for you, what was the intangible?
Well, I mean, for me, it all comes down to purpose, right? What is your ultimate purpose in life? What is your ultimate goal? And for me, what I really did is, I've got these hobbies, right? Everybody in the first responder community, we all kind of have hobbies. And my goal was like, okay, how can I reach out to people? But for me personally, I've kind of, my whole goal in life has been to, what can I do to help other people, right? The problem is, so for me, my entire life has been overcoming obstacles. Whether it's, through school, I'm not going to sit here and have a pity party, but every kind of step along the way has been an obstacle that I've had to overcome.
Sure.
With my own mental health, right? How can I get past this? How can I overcome this? So as I had to retire from an injury, for me, that was just another obstacle. It's something that, okay, I have no control over this. How can I turn this into a positive? So, okay, my goal, my purpose in life, because, for me, I think that our purpose, our goals should be to help other people. Like, how can we benefit other people? And whether that's through the fire department, or whether, it's through Revital, what are we doing in our own lives to benefit somebody else? So for me, I couldn't be doing that as a first responder anymore. So what is my purpose as helping other people? How can I transition that into my personal life? So it's not just like, okay, what can I do for myself? What business can I do for myself? It's no, I want to go out and help other people, but how can I do that? What skills do I have that can be a benefit to others? Am I a writer? Am I am I an artist? Am I a musician? Like, how can I do those, bring my skills to help other people? Well, I do woodworking, I do photography, and I try and write, but it's how can I bring this to other people? Well, other people might want to learn this skill.
Absolutely.
Are you an artist? Are you a musician? Can I take what I'm doing and bring that as a light to somebody else? Can I teach other people and give them a new purpose, give them a new skill? So for me, woodworking, let's say for example, okay, how can I show other people, give somebody else a new hope or something? So as far as the woodworking aspect, right? Can I build something that I'm proud of? So I've started making these knife handles, right? And the reason behind that is now I have something at home that I'm using that I can hold in my hand and say, this is something I did on my own, like something I can be proud of. And I'm taking that in my life to bring that to other people, to give them something that they can be proud of, something that they can learn. So I guess I'm kind of over explaining or something, but which I do. But the people who, it's like, what do I do with my life now? And for me, it's like, okay, well, you're looking at it the wrong way. Like, how can you take what your life has given you now and use that to benefit somebody else, to bring a light to somebody else?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the intangible I heard is right there, right? It's getting outside of yourself to have a positive impact on others, right?
Yes.
And it's driven by your purpose and your mission, which, knowing you, I know, is your faith. And that's the biggest component. I mean, everybody knows, it's no secret, right? Our world is, I would say, not in shambles, but it's tough, and we need each other. And that component in and of itself can be life-changing for so many.
Yeah. And I think it's, looking at what you can bring to the world, what you can bring to somebody else. Once you start looking at that, it's like you have a new purpose in your life when you start realizing what I can do for somebody else.
Yeah.
You start looking at your life a little differently, instead of, well, how is my life benefiting, or how can my life improve after retirement? It's how can I improve somebody else?
Absolutely. And that fills your cup.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You're always looking for more. Like, what more can I do for somebody else? What more, and you see it like, oh, we're helping so many people. How many more can we help with this organization?
Yeah. I'm always trying to think about how can we help at a deeper level, right? Some days my wife will tell you, I come home and I'm like, are we even making a difference? And then I'll get 3 or 4 texts or a testimonial that's like, you have no idea what this meant to me. And I try to keep myself humble in that way, because that's how you stay driven and motivated. You don't become content with where you're at. Yeah. But we do have to stop and look at the impact that, honestly, I'd say God is making through us. But you've got to stop and look at that.
Well, and it almost kind of turns into selfishness, because you're like, oh, I look at what we're doing. I want to keep doing more. I want to keep doing more. But I think that's a good drive. Yeah. Right. Is that, if it is selfish, like, oh man, how many more people can I, but like you said, you have to have that humbleness to go, okay, we are making an impact. I would like to make an impact on everybody, but that's not possible.
Yeah.
But am I making these small impacts?
Absolutely.
Cool.
No, I love it. Yeah. Thanks for answering that.
I don't know. Like I said, I'm long-winded. I've been accused of being too in depth with my explanations, but I hope that answered your
That's great.
Any other questions or comments?
No, man. I just like to thank you and Molly for bringing me up and having me on here. Huge supporter of what you're doing, and I know vice versa. So I would like to say, if there's responders listening and you're wondering how to connect with us, you can download our app, right? Revital Colorado in the App Store. It's first responders or your significant others only, and that's how you can connect with our outings.
Cool. Thank you for coming out here. It's, we're, like Molly said, we're in northern Colorado. It's not too easy, but we get together when we can.
It's an easy hour drive. It's not a big deal.
So thank you for coming up. You can always reach out to us or reach out to Jordan. You can contact us through the website, through thefightwithdepression.com. Go to the contact page if you want to have any questions for Jordan or anything, or questions for us about it. Reach out to us, and that just goes right to my email. And we'll get back to you. We'll answer your questions through the podcast or through an email or whatever. So any closing thoughts?
No, man.
Cool.
Just dog days of winter right now. We'll get through it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm waiting for nicer weather so we can start doing more outings and stuff. So thank you to Jordan for coming out and for everything that you guys are doing. So cool. Yeah, as always, thank you for listening, and until next time, God bless.